Adil had always been the kind of man who lived quietly. Since his early 20s, he had spent most of his life working far away from home. While many people his age built careers, made friends, or started families, Adil spent his days in small rented rooms, doing long shifts, saving money, and keeping to himself. He was not unfriendly, just calm, modest, and someone who never believed he needed more than simple things to be happy. But as years passed, silence began to grow larger around him. His evenings felt heavier, and he often found himself eating alone, living alone, and waking up alone. He told himself many times that loneliness was normal for someone who worked abroad, but a part of him secretly wished he had someone waiting for him at home, a warm voice, a friendly smile, someone who cared whether he had eaten or slept. He saw many of his coworkers get married and start families. Some brought their wives abroad. Some returned home to their children during breaks. And some even discussed small joys of married life. Adil listened quietly, always smiling, but inside he felt something missing. One evening, after finishing work, he sat on his bed scrolling through social media and saw an advertisement for a marriage service that connected people around the world. At first, he ignored it, thinking it was not for someone like him, but over the next few days, the idea started staying in his mind. He did not want excitement, adventure, or dramatic romance. He simply wanted stability, someone gentle, kind, and willing to build a peaceful life with him. After thinking for almost 2 months, he finally decided to create an account. The marriage service asked simple questions about his personality, habits, and expectations. Adil filled everything honestly. He was a straightforward man who preferred honesty over charm, quiet nights over noisy gatherings, and sincerity over show. When it came to describing what he wanted, he wrote only one line: a partner who wants a peaceful life. The service showed him several profiles, but he did not feel a connection with most. Some women seemed too focused on money, some clearly wanted to move abroad quickly, and some simply didn't match his temperament. But then, he came across a profile named Mira. Her photo was simple, no heavy makeup, no filters, just a calm smile. Her description said she wanted a safe, stable home and someone who would respect her dreams. She seemed gentle, polite, and mature. Nothing about her profile felt artificial or exaggerated. Adil read her details 3 times and felt an unusual stillness in his chest, as if something finally made sense. He decided to contact her through the service. Their first few messages were formal. Mira told him she preferred a quiet lifestyle and wanted a marriage where both partners supported each other. She was not demanding, not overly expressive, but respectfully open. Adil liked that. After a week of conversations, he decided he wanted to proceed. The agency handled the legal arrangements, documents, and travel planning. They informed him that Mira would arrive within a month. That 1 month changed the way Adil lived. For the first time in years, his small room started to feel like more than just a place to sleep. He cleaned it thoroughly, bought new bedsheets, arranged the kitchen, and even placed a small plant near the window. He wanted Mira to feel welcomed, respected, and safe. He also felt nervous. What if she didn't like him? What if she found him too quiet or too simple? But he reminded himself that he was not pretending to be someone else. He would be the same Adil he had always been: respectful, honest, and loyal. The night before Mira's arrival, Adil could barely sleep. He kept checking the time, then checking his phone, then thinking about how tomorrow might change his life forever. After years of living with quiet walls and silent nights, someone would finally be entering his world. He imagined her walking through the airport doors, looking around for him. He imagined holding a welcome board with her name written on it. He even imagined buying flowers, but then laughed at himself because he wasn't the type to do dramatic gestures. The next morning, he dressed neatly in simple clothes, combed his hair carefully, and left home early so he wouldn't risk being late. The airport was crowded, with families waiting for relatives, couples hugging, and children running around. Adil stood quietly, holding the paper with Mira's name, trying to calm his heart. As the passengers from the flight started coming out, He looked at every face carefully, searching for the calm smile he had seen in the photo. Some women passed by him. Some glanced at his sign. But none matched Mira's picture. He waited patiently, telling himself there was no need to panic. Sometimes flights took time for passengers to exit, but after 20 minutes, his nervousness returned. He checked the arrival screen again, confirmed the flight number, and returned to the waiting area. Just as he was about to call the agency to ask if anything had changed, he saw a young woman rushing toward him. She looked nothing like Mira. She was younger, visibly worried, and out of breath. Adil lowered the sign, confused. The woman came close to him and said his name in a soft but shaking voice. He nodded slowly, unsure. She whispered that she needed to talk to him, urgently, privately, away from the crowd. Adil felt a strange wave of confusion because this was clearly not the woman he had arranged to marry. He opened his mouth to ask questions, but she held a small envelope toward him and begged him to listen first. Something about her tone, fear mixed with exhaustion, made him pause. He didn't know who she was or why she knew his name, but he sensed she was running from something serious. She looked like someone who had been waiting for a safe moment to breathe. Adil never believed in sudden twists or dramatic surprises in life, but in that moment, he felt the first sign that something unexpected had just stepped into his quiet world. Mira had not arrived. Instead, this stranger stood in front of him, carrying a story he was not prepared for, and without knowing it yet, this single moment was about to change his destiny in a way he could never have imagined. Adil stood in the busy airport hall with complete confusion in his eyes. The girl who approached him looked nothing like the woman he was expecting. Her hair was slightly messy, her breathing heavy, and her hands trembling as she held the small envelope. She kept looking over her shoulder nervously, as if afraid someone might be following her. Adil didn't know what to think. He had come prepared to meet Mira, the simple and calm woman he had spoken to online, but this girl was a complete stranger. Still, something about her expression made him stay silent. Her eyes didn't show mischief or lies. They showed fear, exhaustion, and a desperate need for help. Adil gently asked her what was wrong, but she whispered that she could not explain anything in the middle of the crowd. She asked him if they could talk somewhere quieter. Adil hesitated for a moment. This situation was nothing like he had planned. But he also knew he couldn't just walk away from someone who looked so distressed. He nodded slowly and gestured toward a quieter corner near the coffee shop. The girl followed him quickly, staying close as if every step mattered. When they reached a less crowded spot, she finally took a deep breath and opened her envelope. Inside were some papers. Adil recognized one immediately. It was the travel ticket and the identification documents that belonged to Mira, the woman who was supposed to arrive today. Adil felt a wave of shock wash over him. He looked at the girl again, and she quickly lowered her head. In a soft voice, she said that her name was Lena, not Mira. She explained that she had used Mira's ticket to escape from a situation she could not return to. She didn't go into details yet, but Adil could see the fear in her eyes whenever she spoke about her past. He asked her gently where Mira was, and Lena told him that Mira was safe and had willingly helped her. According to Lena, both she and Mira had met each other in the days leading up to the trip. Mira had learned about Lena's problem and made a brave decision to let Lena use the ticket instead. Mira had even promised that she would explain her absence to the agency later. Adil didn't know whether to believe her. The story sounded impossible, unusual, and confusing. Why would someone give away their own chance at a new life to help another person? Why would Mira not contact him herself? He felt lost, unsure if he should trust the girl in front of him. But then Lena looked up. Her eyes filled with sincerity and desperation. She said she didn't want anything from him, no money, no promises. She said she just needed a place to stay for a few days until she could figure out what to do next. She told him she would leave as soon as she found safety. She just needed time, nothing more. Adil's heart felt heavy. He was not a man who acted impulsively, and he had never been in such an unexpected situation. He knew letting a stranger into his life, even temporarily, could bring trouble. He also knew he was supposed to report the situation to the agency. But something inside him kept him still. Lena didn't look like someone trying to trick him. She looked like someone trying to survive. Adil told her he needed a moment to think. He walked a few steps away, breathing slowly, watching people around him greet their loved ones. He wondered how a day meant for beginning a new chapter had turned into such a complicated situation. After a few minutes, he looked at Lena again. She stood where she was, hands tightly gripping her bag, her eyes full of quiet hope that he wouldn't abandon her. He walked back to her. "You can come with me," he said in a calm voice. "Only for a few days, until we understand everything." Horror. Lena nodded quickly, relief flooding her face. She thanked him several times, her voice trembling slightly. Adil didn't show much emotion, but inside, he felt a responsibility growing, something he had not expected today. The ride home was silent. Lena stayed respectful, sitting quietly and looking out the window. Adil kept glancing at her reflection in the glass, trying to understand how she ended up here. She didn't look dangerous or dishonest. She looked young, educated, and scared. At one point, he asked her if she was hungry. She shook her head gently, saying she hadn't eaten since morning. But she wasn't sure she could eat now. When they reached his small apartment, Lena paused at the door, unsure if she should step inside. Adil noticed her hesitation and told her softly that she was safe. Inside, he offered her a glass of water and told her she could rest in the spare room. The house felt different with another person inside. Adil wasn't used to anyone walking around or placing bags on the chair or quietly looking at the curtains. It felt strange, but not in a bad way, just unexpected. Lena placed her bag down and sat at the edge of the bed in the spare room. She seemed overwhelmed, trying to take everything in. After a moment, she thanked Adil again and said she would tell him everything once she gathered her thoughts. Adil nodded and stepped out, giving her space. That night, Adil couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Mira, about the agency, and about Lena. He wondered if he had made a mistake, but every time he remembered Lena's anxious face at the airport, he felt that he had done what any decent person would do. He reminded himself that he wasn't helping her because he was supposed to. He was helping her because someone needed him at that moment. In the morning, Adil found Lena sitting quietly at the dining table, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea he had left for her. She looked calmer now, though still tired. She apologized for causing him trouble and thanked him for his kindness. Then she began to tell him her story, not everything at once, but small pieces. Spoken carefully, she told him about her childhood, about her dreams of studying and working, and about the pressure she had faced from people around her who didn't understand her choices. She spoke with honesty, not trying to gain sympathy but simply explaining her truth. Adil listened quietly, not interrupting, only nodding when needed. As she spoke, Adil realized she was not irresponsible or reckless. She was someone who wanted a peaceful life, just like him, but had been caught in difficult circumstances. She was brave enough to run but humble enough to feel guilty about needing help. Days passed, and Lena slowly settled into a routine. She cleaned her room, helped with simple chores, and always stayed respectful of Adil's privacy. She never explored the house without permission and never asked for anything more than basic comfort. Adil noticed her decent manners and gentle nature. Something else began to happen without planning it. They started having small conversations. Sometimes they talked during tea time, sometimes while arranging dishes after dinner. Adil found himself listening to her stories with interest. Lena, on the other hand, found comfort in his calm and steady presence. He didn't judge her or rush her. He simply gave her space and safety. One evening, while they sat in the living room, Lena softly said she would leave soon. She didn't want to trouble him any longer. But when she said that, Adil felt an unfamiliar heaviness in his chest. He realized he had grown used to her presence in the house. It hadn't even been long, yet her quiet footsteps, her soft voice, and her gentle way of thanking him had become part of the atmosphere around him. Adil didn't say anything. but the thought of her leaving suddenly felt unsettling. At that moment, he still didn't know that their destinies had already begun to intertwine. He didn't know that helping her escape danger would soon put him in the center of difficulties he never imagined. All he knew was that a stranger had arrived in his life in the most unexpected way, and somehow, she was beginning to change his thoughts, his home, and the direction of his future. Adil woke up the next morning with a strange mix of calm and tension in his chest. For days, he had been living with a question that he tried to ignore. What would happen when Lena finally decided to leave? He reminded himself again and again that she was only staying temporarily. She had made that clear, but every passing day made the temporary feel less temporary, and the quiet house felt less empty with her presence in it. Lena woke up early as usual and helped prepare breakfast. Her movements were gentle, as if she didn't want to disturb the silence of the house. Adil watched her quietly while drinking tea. She had become comfortable enough to walk around without fear, but there was always a hint of caution in her eyes, like someone who had run far but still expected trouble to catch up. After breakfast, Adil finally asked the question that had been worrying him. "Is someone looking for you?" Lena froze for a second. She placed her cup on the table and took a slow breath before answering. She didn't lie or try to hide anything. She explained that people from her hometown had been trying to find her ever since she left. They were not dangerous people, but they were strict and had strong influence. She didn't want to be found by them because returning to her old life meant returning to restrictions she could no longer live under. Adil listened quietly, not judging her. When she finished, he simply said, "You're safe here." Lena smiled faintly, grateful that he understood her situation without asking too many painful questions. But safety is a delicate thing, and fate does not always stay silent. That evening, while Adil was returning home from work, he noticed a car parked near the building entrance. Two men stood beside it, talking while looking around as if searching for someone. Adil didn't pay attention at first. People came and went all the time. But when one of the men approached him and asked if he knew a girl named Lena, Adil felt the air around him turn heavy. He kept his expression calm and replied that he didn't know anyone by that name. The man's eyes were sharp, studying Adil's face as if trying to catch a lie. After a long moment, the man stepped back and thanked him before returning to the car. Adil continued walking toward the building, but his heart was racing. Lena was right. People were searching for her. When he entered the apartment, Lena immediately sensed something was wrong. She asked him what had happened, and Adil told her everything. Her face slowly turned pale. She sat down quietly, pressing her hands together. She didn't look scared for herself, she looked scared for Adil. "I never wanted to bring trouble to your life," she whispered. "I thought I would leave before anything like this happened." Adil sat across from her. "You don't have to leave," he said firmly. "We'll think of a solution." Lena looked at him, her eyes filling with silent emotion. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The room was quiet, but something unspoken passed between them. A sense of trust stronger than any spoken promise. The next few days were tense. Adil avoided taking longer routes. He noticed the same car parked near the street twice. The men were not aggressive, but they were determined. Lena stayed inside the house, keeping the curtains closed. She spent most of her time in the spare room, reading or writing, trying to keep her mind steady. Adil felt a responsibility toward her that he had never expected. He found himself checking the window often, listening for unfamiliar footsteps, making sure the doors were locked. He had lived alone for years and never felt fear for himself, but now, fear came easily because someone else depended on him. One night, Lena finally opened up about everything. She told him that she came from a respected family where expectations were strict. She wanted to study more, work in a field she loved, and live with freedom. But her dreams were considered unnecessary and unrealistic. She felt trapped in a life where her voice didn't matter. Mira, the woman Adil had planned to marry, had met Lena a few weeks earlier. They became friends quickly because both of them understood each other's struggles. When Mira learned why Lena was planning to leave, she didn't hesitate to help. She believed Lena deserved a chance at a peaceful life. Lena didn't go into too much detail, but Adil could see how deeply Mira had trusted her. Adil listened without interrupting. Her honesty made him feel closer to her, not in a romantic way, but in a human way. He admired her courage. Running away from a life she didn't want was not a selfish act. It was an act of survival. As days passed, their connection grew stronger. Not because they planned it, not because of any grand gestures, but through small, quiet moments. Adil found himself looking forward to their evening conversations. Lena, who once spoke carefully as if afraid of saying too much, now shared her thoughts more openly. She cooked simple meals with him, asked about his work, and sometimes laughed softly at his shy jokes. Adil wasn't used to laughter in his home. The sound of it made the apartment feel warmer, but the outside world didn't stay quiet. One afternoon, the marriage agency called Adil. The representative politely asked why Mira had not arrived and whether he had any information. Adil felt a wave of nervousness. He didn't want to lie, but he also didn't want Lena to be taken away before she could build a safe life. He simply told them that there had been a travel mix-up and that Mira had informed someone that she would not be arriving. The agency told him they would try to contact Mira directly. Adil hung up the phone with a heavy sigh. The situation was becoming complicated, and he knew he couldn't hide the truth forever. Lena saw him sitting silently afterward and understood what he was going through. "You don't have to protect me," she said gently. "I will leave if my being here is putting you in danger." Adil shook his head. "You don't have anywhere to go. I won't let you walk out just because others are looking for you." Lena looked at him for a long moment. There was gratitude in her eyes, but also worry. She didn't want to cause him pain, but she also didn't want to return to a life where her dreams would be ignored. That night, Adil sat alone in the living room, long after Lena had gone to sleep. He thought about everything he had planned when he first came to the airport. A simple life. A simple beginning. He thought about Mira's kindness in helping Lena, and how different the situation had become. Life had shifted in a direction he never expected. He had gone to the airport to welcome a potential partner, but fate had placed someone else in his life, a person who was not meant for him, yet somehow connected to him in ways he didn't fully understand. Adil didn't believe in romantic fantasies or dramatic stories, but he believed in responsibility, in kindness, and in doing what felt right. And everything inside him told him that helping Lena was the right thing. He didn't know what the future held. He didn't know whether the men searching for her would return or whether the agency would uncover the truth. But he did know one thing. He was no longer standing alone in his quiet world. Someone had entered it unexpectedly, and her presence had changed the rhythm of his days and the direction of his thoughts. The story of his life was no longer unfolding the way he had planned. It was becoming something deeper, more complicated, and strangely meaningful. And without realizing it fully, Adil had already taken the first steps toward a destiny he never imagined, one that was slowly being rewritten by a runaway beauty who had appeared at the airport like a twist fate had carefully planned. Days passed slowly, and both Adil and Lena felt the uncertainty growing around them. The men searching for Lena appeared twice again near the building. But Adil avoided any close contact. He walked home carefully, checking his surroundings without making it obvious. Lena stayed mostly inside, reading, writing, and trying to keep her mind calm. But Adil could see the worry in her eyes every time she heard footsteps in the hallway or a knock on a neighbor's door. One evening, after dinner, Lena sat quietly at the dining table. She had been thoughtful all day, speaking less than usual. Adil noticed the change and asked her if something was wrong. She took a deep breath before answering. "I need to make a decision," she said softly. "I cannot stay hidden forever. The people looking for me, they will not stop easily. And I don't want you to face trouble because of me." Adil looked at her for a moment. His voice was calm but firm when he replied, "You are not a burden, Lena. I told you that you're safe here." She smiled faintly, but it was not the smile she gave when she was comfortable. It was a sad smile, one that belonged to someone who felt thankful, yet guilty at the same time. "I know," she said, "and that is what makes it harder." That night, She did not sleep until very late. Adil could hear her moving gently in the spare room, as if she was trying not to make noise but could not rest. He sat on the sofa for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened. He had never expected any of this. Yet now he could not imagine simply letting her walk away. The next morning brought an unexpected development. The marriage agency called again, but this time their tone was different. They said they had finally spoken to Mira. She had explained that she had given her ticket to a friend who needed help. The agency didn't know who that friend was, but they informed Adil that Mira had withdrawn from the marriage arrangement entirely. Adil thanked them for informing him and ended the call. He sat quietly afterward, processing the news. It felt strange relief mixed with disappointment. He had never truly known Mira personally, but a part of him had prepared mentally for a future with her. Now that future was officially gone. Lena noticed the silence and came out of her room. When she asked what happened, Adil told her everything. She listened quietly, her eyes soft with guilt. "I never wanted to ruin your plans," she said. "She trusted me because she believed I needed help. But I never wanted you to lose your chance at marriage." Adil shook his head gently. "Life does not always go the way we plan. Maybe this was not meant for me." Lena lowered her gaze. She didn't have a reply. Later that afternoon, Adil found her standing near the window, looking outside with a faraway expression. She seemed deep in thought. When he asked if she was okay, she finally admitted something she had been hiding. "I have been thinking about leaving soon," she said. "Not because I want to leave you, but because I want you to have peace again. Your life has changed because of me. I don't want to complicate it anymore." Hearing those words sent a strange ache through Adil's heart. He had lived alone for years, and yet now, the thought of silence returning to his house felt cold. He didn't want Lena to feel trapped, but he also didn't want her to disappear suddenly. Before he could respond, there was a sudden knock on the door. Adil and Lena looked at each other with tension rising. Adil walked to the door carefully and checked through the peephole. His shoulders relaxed slightly when he recognized his neighbor, an older man from the next apartment, carrying a small bag. He opened the door, and the neighbor handed him the bag, saying it was delivered by mistake. Adil thanked him and closed the door. But even after the door shut, Lena's hands were trembling. The simple knock had shaken her deeply. Adil decided something then. After dinner, he sat across from her and spoke seriously. "Lena, you don't need to run anymore. Not alone. If those people come again, we will tell them calmly that you are safe and you want to live independently. They cannot force you to return." Lena looked uncertain. "They may not listen," she whispered. "They have their own ways of controlling things. But we will handle it together," Adil said gently. "You are not alone anymore." These words affected Lena more than she expected. Her eyes softened with emotion she tried to hide. She looked away for a moment, gathering herself before speaking again. "Why are you being so kind to me?" she asked softly. "You don't even know me well." Adil thought for a moment. Then, he answered in simple words. "Because kindness is not something that needs permission. You needed help. I was there. That is enough." Lena lowered her head, blinking away the emotion gathering in her eyes. The days that followed became calmer. The men searching for Lena stopped appearing near the building. Maybe they had given up. Or maybe they had decided to look elsewhere. Lena slowly relaxed, though a small part of her still feared that the past could return. One morning, while Adil was preparing tea, Lena came to him with a small folded paper in her hand. She looked nervous but determined. "I want to stay in this city," she said. "I want to work, study, and build a life. But I cannot do it without some guidance. I don't know anyone here except you." Adil put the tea aside and listened. "You have helped me without asking for anything," she continued. "And I don't want to depend on you forever. But if you allow, I want to stay close. Not in your house, but somewhere near. So I can start my life, but still have a friend I trust." Adil felt something warm spread through his chest. The idea of her being close, not leaving suddenly, gave him relief he hadn't realized he needed. "That is a good plan," he said quietly. I will help you find a safe place. And you will not be alone. Lena exhaled slowly, as though a weight had lifted from her shoulders. Together, they searched for a small, affordable room for her. They visited several places over the next few days. Some were too expensive, some too far, some not safe, but finally, they found a small studio apartment not far from Adil's building. The place was simple, one window, one bed, a small kitchen, but Lena liked it immediately. Adil helped her clean it, arrange her things, and make the space feel livable. It took the whole day, and by evening, both of them were tired. But when Lena looked around at her new room, her face showed peace. It was the first time she truly felt like she had a future she could shape with her own hands. As Adil prepared to leave, Lena called his name softly. He turned around, and she walked up to him with a calm, grateful smile. "You changed my life," she said. "Everything I am starting now. I owe to your kindness." "I owe to your kindness." Adil didn't know how to respond at first. He wasn't used to emotional words. He simply nodded and said, "You helped yourself too." "I only gave support." Lena looked at him for a long moment, then said something that stayed in his mind long after he left the room. "Not everyone gives support, Adil. But you did." In the following weeks, Lena settled into her new routine. She found a part-time job, enrolled in short courses, and slowly built confidence. Adil visited her sometimes, and she visited him. They shared meals, talked about their days, and supported each other in quiet, steady ways. There were no grand declarations, no sudden changes, just two people building trust slowly, naturally. Adil's life, once silent and routine, now had meaning that felt deeper than he ever expected. He had gone to the airport for a simple arranged marriage, but fate had given him something completely different. An unexpected connection, a chance to help someone rebuild their life, and the beginnings of a bond that was gentle and real. Lena, once a runaway with fear in her eyes, now walked with confidence. She had escaped a life that held her back, and she had found safety in the kindness of a man who never asked for anything in return. Neither of them knew what the future held, but both had learned something important. Sometimes, destiny doesn't arrive the way we plan it. Sometimes, it arrives in the form of a stranger running through an airport, carrying an envelope, looking for safety. And sometimes, that unexpected stranger becomes a part of your life in ways you never imagined.